Let's talk now, though, about net zero. Harry Wilkinson's here, head of policy at the Global Warming Policy Foundation, because, believe it or not, despite the fact that they're talking about growth and airports and runways and all of that, the government is still answering to the tune of the climate change nutters vis-à-vis the Climate Change Committee, who apparently have told ministers that ambitious net zero goals can only be met by deterring air travel through measures including a frequent flyer levy, also eating less meat for people, getting heat pumps installed in all their homes, and not driving very much. Harry, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
I mean, just when you thought that this idiotic government had seen some kind of sense and decided that actually, you know, economic growth might be a bit more important than saving the planet, they still have been pushed and pulled in all sorts of directions by Ed Miliband and his nutty crowd.
Well, that's right. Unfortunately, this carbon budget is something that we could expect because the Climate Change Act and net zero is, of course, embedded in the Climate Change Act. That happened because Theresa May increased the target from 80% to 100% back in 2019. And that act sets out that the Climate Change Committee creates these 5-year carbon budgets periodically, setting out the pathway to getting to net zero. So this is the latest pathway. It absurdly covers the years 2038 to 42, as if they had any idea what on earth will be consuming of different energy products in those years. This is pure speculation. The numbers don't mean anything. They're completely pointless. However, they have this ridiculous legal standing. So we are now beholden as a country to some rather inadequate boffins in a room predicting the future. You know, however talented these people are, they can't predict the future, and experience shows that economic predictions are incredibly difficult. And they're saying we need to have this number of heat pumps and this number of EVs by that point. If the government just focused on getting the cost of electricity down, then it would have more progress. An EV would be cheaper to run if electricity was cheaper. A heat pump would be cheaper to run if electricity was cheaper. And we have the most expensive electricity in the world. This is completely absurd.
Yeah, and it's completely unsustainable, isn't it? I mean, the idea as well that somehow heat pumps are the answer. Everyone I speak to who has a heat pump, whether they wanted to have one or not, have problems with it. Either it's too noisy. I mean, in Parliament, I think they've stopped using them because they're too noisy. People have spoken to me who've had them installed in their homes, and they say they're really noisy. They keep them awake at night. It's like having a diesel generator sort of parked outside your window, basically. And they don't work very well. And the same goes for electric cars. We still don't really have anything like the capacity or the grid, if you like, for charging electric cars if you happen to be driving one in different parts of the country.
Well, I think it's really important that when people are, considering getting a heat pump, they take very detailed advice about how it would work in their specific home. Right. Because many homes in the UK are not that well insulated. So not only will they have to have, a new boiler put in, a much bigger boiler, much more equipment, bigger radiators potentially, and then additional insulation on top of that. This is a significant undertaking that can cost households tens of thousands of pounds. And then even after all that work, if it's not configured correctly, it can leave people with substantially higher bills. So it's something not to be taken lightly whatsoever. It can work for some households, but they should really take that advice very seriously and plan this appropriately. Unfortunately, a lot of people have been misled into thinking this was such a great thing. The government's providing large grants to encourage people to do this, and therefore they haven't necessarily foreseen that they're going to have massively higher bills at the end of this.
No, exactly right. And that's the problem. The bill is a kind of a never-ending rising scenario, isn't it? Because despite what Ed Miliband said, that we're all going to be saving £300 at some point in the future, which has not been yet determined, you know, electricity, as you say, goes up. It's going up another 111 quid in the next sort of cap rise, which happens, I think, on April the 1st. And so, you know, I think people's annual electricity bills are now projected at something ridiculous like nearly £1,700.
I know, and Ed Miliband needs to wake up and smell the coffee in terms of what is happening around the world. You've got Donald Trump saying, drill, baby, drill. You've got Argentina embracing shale gas technology. And so the mood music is changing. It's clear that economic growth is going to be really important. And we're going to need that growth to invest in the kind of new technologies that could really make a difference in terms of climate change.
Yeah.
What we've got to move away from is this miserabilist approach, which tries to regulate the kind of technologies that people can choose to use in their own homes. We have a zero-emission vehicle mandate, which forces people to buy electric vehicles. We've got a clean heat market mechanism, which forces people to buy heat pumps. This is the kind of rigid, statist approach that has left Britain, you know, one of the slowest growing countries. We've got to copy countries that are taking an energy abundant approach. You know, fossil fuels still provide 78% of our primary energy needs. And Ed Miliband, whenever he's asked about getting bills down, he says, oh, we just got to get away from fossil fuels. The reality is they provide most of our energy needs now. And if he hasn't got a plan to get fossil fuel costs down, then he hasn't got a plan to get energy costs down.
No, he really hasn't. And he hasn't got a clue. There's the other bit that we could mention as well. Harry, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Harry Wilkinson, Head of Policy at the Global Warming Policy Foundation.